I didn't anticipate us being back here so soon, but we are here with breaking news. San Francisco 49ers star receiver Deebo Samuel has requested a trade away from the 49ers. We're going to get to all that and more right here. I still got to sound the horns. Let's go. You know what it is.
Intercepted. It is picked up by Eric Rocker. Over midfield. He'll run it all the way into the end zone. Touchdown.
Crop Talk TV podcast. Peace. Breaking news. Wow, this is crazy, right? This is crazy. No, we just talked about this morning. We talked about this morning, and we also talked about this Locked On 49ers with myself, Brian Peacock. So, if y'all didn't tune into the live episode, that's there as well. We were about to go live anyways for Winky Wednesday, right before that news dropped. Big bomb. But this morning, we talked about it, and there were people trying to put down what his brother was saying and all that. And I'm not one to come on here and be like, I was right, y'all was wrong. That's not what I'm doing here. But I was right, and a lot of y'all was wrong. No, I'm joking. Definitely a crazy situation. And if y'all want to come on, because we probably won't be on here that long, but feel free, come on. Y'all know what to do. Hit the, there we go. Go ahead, hit the link right there. Come on live and kind of give what you think is going on. But the news is broken, and Deebo Samuel wants out. He wants to be traded. It's not about the money, I guess. So let me go to the actual report real quick. Go to my account so we can see what was reported of this whole thing, which is definitely not ideal. So Jeff Darlington with the breaking news. I just spoke to wide receiver Deebo Samuel. So this isn't even like I'm hearing or, my sources are telling me or whatever. This is, I spoke to Deebo Samuel. And he told me that he has asked the 49ers to trade him. And he did not want to discuss the specific reasons behind his request, but he has indeed let the 49ers know his desire to leave the organization. More to come. So there will be more to come from this whole thing. I saw something about it not being about the money and stuff like that. I think that was like maybe Ian Rappaport. Obviously, everybody's all over this whole thing going on right now. But in my opinion, this is crazy because I don't know what it's about. Talking to my guy Brian Peacock, he thinks that it stemmed from like maybe contract negotiations, but then no, it turned into something different. There is a video out there right now. I don't know how many of y'all have seen it, but there is a video and you hear him in the background saying that they haven't offered him anything. And I don't know if it was his mom or I don't know who was in the video, but it was like a woman and she's on like Instagram Live and you can hear Deebo Samuel talking in the background. So he's disgruntled. He's not happy. He's extremely upset. And this, I don't know how you get here. I do know one thing. The brother said it on social media or whatever he told. And I told everybody that was in here this morning. I said, listen, if my brother says something, please believe we have talked about this. We have discussed whatever he says out there. Whether I want him to say it or not, we've discussed these things. And everybody tried to shoot it down in the chat earlier today. And I was like, this is a real thing, whether you want to believe it or not. We got people hurting right now. My guy, Revenge. So I'm hurting right now. I'm hurting too because Deebo Samuel is my favorite player. Matter of fact, I need to get my brother on because I told my brother I would get him on to get his perspective. That was before this whole trade request and everything like that. But my brother was like, man, 49ers are stupid. 49ers are stupid. This is ridiculous what they're doing, what they're talking about. Stop playing with Deebo Samuel. He's the best player on your team. Like, if he's a diehard Cowboy fan, he's like, man, if it weren't for Deebo, like, y'all would not have beat the Dallas Cowboys. He's a game changer. And the fact that he wants out, I don't know. So y'all click the link, man. Y'all tell me, why do y'all think he wants out? Why do y'all think so? I get a text from one of my homies. He's like, I get a text from one of my homies. He's like, oh, he don't want to play with Trey Lance. I see some comments on Twitter. He don't want to play with Trey Lance. And I'm like, I don't think it's that simple. I don't think it's that simple to, I don't want your money. I don't want to play with this organization. It's deeper than whatever, because of a quarterback that was drafted. Maybe. But I don't know. That same quarterback, shoot, Trey Lance threw Deebo Samuel half of his touchdown receptions last year. Deebo only had 6 touchdowns. 3 of them was from Trey Lance in 2.5 games. And he put up yards. I don't know. I don't know what this is about. I don't think it's about Trey Lance, but you never know. He did come out and say, I ain't working out with these guys or whatever. I'm doing my thing. If Trey Lance wants to work out with me, he got to come to Miami. I don't know. Crazy situation. I got my guy Ruthless coming on. Ruthless, man, what's your thoughts, bro? Oh, Ruthless clicked out. All right, so he's out of here. But anybody else wants to come on and just kind of give your perspective, because right now, I don't know what it is. I don't think it's as simple as he's not going to get targets with Trey Lance. He got plenty of targets from Trey Lance. I don't know what it is, y'all. Y'all let me know what y'all are thinking. But I guess, do the 49ers trade him? I guess that's kind of where they're at now. Because he requests a trade, you don't have to trade him, right? Like that was the situation with N'Keal Harry last year with the New England Patriots. Patriots were like, all right, N'Keal was like, I want to be traded. I'm requesting a trade. And the Patriots was like, no, you're going to play for us. And N'Keal Harry played for him, right? So I'm not saying that the 49ers do that. There will be people that say, well, again, right here, boom, perfect. Deebo is still under contract, so he's stuck. There will be people that say that. I know one thing. If I run a business, well, I do, right? My gym. But when my gym is up and I have employees, even if an employee signs a contract with me, all right, you got to be with me for this long. And my employee is disgruntled and feels like this isn't the place for them and they want to move on to somewhere else, all right, I'll help you do that. I'll help you find the place for you. And if I'm the 49ers, I don't hold Deebo Samuel hostage. I do, everything. All right, can we get these negotiations going? We can't fix this, Deebo? All right, well, I'll get on the phone and make some calls and see what we can get in return. This is what we want. Let's see if these teams can reach these demands. That's how I handle it. I'm not going to hold somebody. If you don't want to be here on a team who I feel like 49ers, since drafting Deebo Samuel, they've done very well for themselves, right? A Super Bowl, 2 NFC championship games. If you don't want to be a part of that, a team that has those type of aspirations, and that's what we're doing here, you don't want to be here, you can go. I don't want you to go. I want you to be here. I don't want to trade you. I don't think that whatever draft capital we get back is worth losing you, our offensive MVP, our team MVP. But if you don't want to be here, then I gotta let you go. I would not hold him hostage. Taxes, and he said taxes, and he said numerous times he don't like Cali. We talked about it a little bit on the Locked On 49ers podcast. I know a lot of people kind of start talking about the taxes and things like that, but you are only taxed as far as like your game checks. You're only taxed for the games you play in California. As far as California taxes, so obviously that's a lot of games, right? That's going to be 9 games this year. So 9 games this year, you do get taxed 49ers taxes, but that's not you get taxed as a whole if you play a game in Texas, you get taxed for them. If you play a game in, I don't know, New Jersey with the Jets or Giants, you get taxed there. If you play a game in Florida, then you get taxed Florida taxes. Trade him. I would trade him not because I want to, but because I feel like if that's what you want, we need to make a move now. So, Medic Mike, your thought.
What's going on, Croc? What's up? What's up? I think it's something bigger than any of us know, honestly. It's not about the money or taxes, because just like you said, you get taxed on wherever you're at. So I mean, that's less relevant than people think. I don't think it's on his usage, because every time they asked him about it, he was like, "Give me the ball. Give me the ball. Coach, hand me the ball. Coach, get me the ball." And so if that's the case and it's about his usage, I also think that's something that could be remedied. Because, I mean, you hear stories about Deebo going to talk to Kyle Shanahan every day. He's like, we talk about football, we talk about life. It seems like they actually have a good relationship outside of football. And so if it's your usage, Kyle's the one calling the plays and drawing it up. He can go talk to Kyle about that. So I personally think it's something none of us know about. It's not about money. I mean, people are like, oh, they don't want to pay him. They don't want to pay him. They made Trent Williams the highest paid at his position. They made Kittle the highest paid at his position. They made Warner the highest paid at his position. They have no problem giving dudes money. And so it's something that I really have no idea what it is. But at this point, if he's really insistent on not being here, get what you can. Go get what you can, and you go make a move, and you get some of these playmakers.
And you do it now, right? I mean, I'd say there is a positive, I don't think there's any positive with losing one of your best players. And between him, Nick Bosa, Trent Williams, George Kittle, the 49ers have some terrific players. You don't want to lose any of them. And you have a guy who just wants out, right? But if there is any positive to that, it's the timing of it. And the 49ers right now, you got the draft in a week. At least it happened now, to where if you are going to move on from him, there is no replacing Deebo Samuel, but there is, you know what? We can address the receiver position in the draft, and we can bring somebody along, and we have guys that know the system. And, you know, there are guys, there's somebody on the free agent market right now. I just saw Jarvis Landry's name being thrown around. You know, you want to bring him in for a 1-year contract along with the receiver that you draft, you know, to be the long-term guy eventually. There's a lot of different areas you can go with this. You know, you got Brandon Ayuk. Can he take the next step? But you can figure those things out now. And I think that's kind of the I guess if there's any bright spot with any of this, it's that.
It helps to lessen the blow of losing them. Right. I mean, so, yeah, it's and I don't know what it is. And why I really believe it's not about money, people are like, oh, disrespectful lowball offer. If you've ever negotiated or been in negotiations, that's how these things work. You go back and forth, you go back and forth, you go back and forth, and you come at a number. You don't just get a number and be like, oh, that's disrespectful. I want out. That's not how negotiations work, especially when you're, 3-4 months from or you're 3 months from training camp. Like you have so much time to negotiate. So that's why I don't think it has anything to do with that. The timing doesn't make sense. It's something else. I have no idea what it is, but I mean, thank you for what you did, Deebo. If you're really serious about being out, God bless you. Hope you have success wherever you're at. And I hope we get a real nice return.
Right. And that's the only way you can look at it. I feel like, I'm not one to hold someone against the will. I see a lot of people in the chat like, no, the 49ers, they hold all the leverage. And it's like, well, yeah, the 49ers have leverage. Deebo, I mean, he kind of has his leverage in the sense of not wanting to be there, but I've never been one to make someone stay somewhere they don't want to be.
No, get the value for him. Be like, all right, man, thank you. Out the door, and bring in your next and turn the page. You start on your next chapter and you keep it pushing.
Right. All right, man. Medic Mike, appreciate you coming on, bro.
All right, bro.
All right. Here's a good one. Julio, bring in Julio. I bring in Julio. Okay, again, there's no replacing Deebo. And Julio's not quite Julio anymore. He's more like Julio or something. I don't know. That was kind of corny, my bad. But Julio ain't the Julio that we all know him to be. But if you're talking about, man, I got Ayuk and there is Julio, and you can go out and at least have a teacher, a body, and you also go out and go draft a guy. I could see something like that. I could see something like that. Somebody say your teeth extra white. I don't know. Maybe it's the lighting. Everybody says my teeth are white. I don't know. I think they're normal. Anthony, got
Hi.
that right? How you doing?
I'm doing good. I came home from school, so I'm doing great.
How old are you?
I'm 19.
Okay. What school are you going to?
I'm going to a community college in my area.
Okay, that's what's up.
I just wanted to ask about the long-term implications of it, because he has some injury history. They do need to get younger in some areas, especially with a lot of other guys that they're going to have to pay, even with Lance's rookie deal. I just wanted to ask about that, and then I'll get out of here.
Hold on, repeat that one more time.
Just the long term, what do you think of adding draft capital, adding a little cap flexibility, that kind of aspect of it?
Obviously, there's not a lot of pluses that come out of having to trade a guy like Deebo Samuel. And again, I know most fans would be like, "You don't got to trade him," but if you look at it from that standpoint, right? They will have more cap flexibility by not having him. Again, not ideal. You factored him into your long-term plans. But now you're going to have a little bit more money, especially, you get Jimmy Garoppolo's money off your books eventually. You roll some of that over. Deebo Samuel, you trade him away. You get that, you don't pay that money you were expecting to have to pay him next year and for years to come. You draft a receiver that's younger. And I always felt like they were going to have to come to a decision. Let's say, hypothetically speaking, Brandon Ayuk had a 1,200-yard season, right, this year. And then next year he has another 1,200-yard season, something like that. They're going to have to pay him good money.
Yeah.
Well, you already paid Deebo Samuel. So I always felt like at some point they were going to have to choose one or the other. And I think they would like to choose Deebo Samuel. That's the guy that the coach loves. They had to kind of get more out of Brandon Ayuk. But if you can get Brandon Ayuk to where, you need him to be, I don't know if he'll ever have a season like what we just saw from Deebo Samuel. But I think as far as the money goes, it kind of helps the right now, especially while your young quarterback is on his rookie contract, if you can get him going. So, again, I think they tried to factor it all in, but it's just there's just, to me, it's more than the money when you're playing, missing a guy like Deebo Samuel.
I'm a Jags fan, so I know exactly how that feels.
Yeah,
we always let our good players walk. So
and they did that. Really, shoots, man. The Jags did that.
I'm still mad about Ramsey.
Yeah, it was Ramsey. It was. I feel like they just let a bunch of guys walk at one time. So yeah, we saw how that worked out for them.
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
All right, thanks for coming on. I see my guy Smitty in the chat. Shout out to Smitty. Smitty, check your Twitter DMs right now. I just sent the link. Here's what we're not gonna do, y'all. We ain't gonna call Deebo a one-trick pony. He is not a one-trick. Matter of fact, he's a 1,400-yard receiver. So if you say one-trick pony, what is that one trick? Does that one trick incorporate a whole lot of other things? And it's like, man, he's a one-trick pony, but his one trick is terrific receiver, had almost 1,000 yards through 8-9 games, scored 14 touchdowns, can run the ball, can be a kickoff returner. I don't think that's a one-trick pony. I don't think so. You think so? Here we go. Deebo, he chose violence today. He did. Deebo leads the league in drops as a wide receiver. And I've talked about that as well. I do not care. I do not care. When it comes to wide receiver drops, let's say he had 10 drops last year. Well, that's less than one drop per game. And I feel like his contributions to those games far exceeded any less than 1 drop per game. So, nah. I mean, I hear it. I hear you, but playmaker. I can live with it. Smitty, what up, man?
What's up, man? It's a shame what's going on. I think when I came on your show the last time, right before I left, I said within a week he's going to request a trade. And we're here because of the Niners dropping the ball. We're not here because of Deebo Samuel refusing to come to the table. I just want to make it real clear that I feel like the media twists this stuff up. And I'm sorry if I'm repeating maybe some of what you've already said or what's been talked about.
You're good. You're good.
But,
I need all that tape.
The way that the media, including Schefter, especially Schefter, and I'm not saying I love Rappaport, I'm team Rappaport, but sometimes the media twists this stuff up. I can guarantee you, Croc, that this whole Deebo's refusing to go back to the table is merely him not wanting to dance anymore with the Niners. Because we both know that the Niner way is July or August that he's getting a deal, right? July or August. Kittle did it. You need to wait. It's the Niner way. It's how we do things. And maybe they wanted to bring him back to the table to talk about that, to run circles around the situation. But they weren't coming with a strong contract offer to Deebo. Deebo basically said enough's enough. I want to see what my value is. I want to see what I'm worth. I would like a trade so that A, you can push the Niners into bucking up and finally offering a legitimate offer, or B, really test out what maybe his value is so that maybe he can create more unrest. Unfortunately, that's the business, to get traded so he can go get $80 million guaranteed. Like, Deebo should have been paid months ago when he probably would have accepted $55-60 million guaranteed. The Niners didn't even want to pay that. What makes anybody think they've been sitting at the table with a 70 or more guaranteed $1 million contract as if Deebo's the one not coming to the table? That Schefter report yesterday was garbage, because Schefter a lot of the time will mix his opinion with fact now, and he won't tell you when he's going in one direction and the other. Example, case in point, Aaron Rodgers is going to get traded on draft day. That whole debacle last year. Schefter did the same thing with this. I watched the report last night. It drove me nuts. I went straight on YouTube to break it down, read what he said word for word, and this man acted like and spoke like there was facts behind what he was saying, that Deebo Samuel, that the Niners are ready. They'll sign him today. They'll sign him tomorrow. They'll sign him. They're here. They're waiting. They're ready to pay him. They're not ready to pay him. They haven't been ready to pay him. That's why we're here, and it's crazy to me. Deebo's getting so much hate. I don't blame him for requesting a trade. And even though I ripped Schefter last night, the reason at the end of my video, I said, I just want to make it clear, Deebo Samuel's requesting a trade. It's going to happen because we're approaching the draft. But it's not because of what Schefter's saying or how Schefter's framing it.
What do you think about this here? All right, I have somebody, boom, right here. Here we go. What if his agent told him to request a trade to see the compensation he would garner to see what his contract value should be?
Yeah. There's two reasons for requesting a trade. One, you're trying to entice and force your team to step up and do the right thing. And like, it's just like in fantasy football, because I do fantasy football, Croc. When you're in the middle of a trade negotiation with somebody and they say, hold on, let me go see if anybody else in the league, let me post this to everybody and see if I can get a better deal. That's the worst thing in the world. You don't want to hear that. You want to close in on your deal. You don't want them going off and getting a better price, creating a bidding war, just like in the housing market. You want to be the only person going after that house because you got negotiation power. But as soon as you open the door to 12, 15, 20 other people, or in this case, other teams, it's going to drive the market up. There's going to be a bidding war for Deebo Samuel, and the Niners don't want that. Deebo knows the Niners don't want that because that's going to validate this is the cost. This is what I'm worth. Look at the Jets are willing to pay me $80 million guaranteed. I'm hearing it right now. That's why you request a trade. Doesn't mean all is lost. Doesn't mean Deebo. I mean, you know this. Deebo's not gone yet, and the Niners may not oblige. They might say no, but it's going to certainly validate or devalidate, if that's even a word, the ability to get more money. Like this could backfire. I don't think it will because Deebo's worth a lot and teams want him, but it could backfire on a player. A player could go, watch, I'm going to go get a trade. Like, can I request a trade? And then nobody's knocking on the door. And then it's like, you go back to your team, you tuck your tail between your legs and they're like, yeah, maybe we're not going to give you what we're gonna. This won't happen that way. If the Niners are, I think you could agree with this, Croc. They're not the kind of team that's going to get pushed around, but at the same time, this is a lot of drama. And if the right offer comes along and a team's desperate enough, like the Jets for Deebo, and they offer the number 4 and they give you a second rounder, look, Croc, you take the number 4, you get Sauce Gardner, Hutchinson, Stingley even, but say Sauce Gardner or Hutchinson, and then you get a second rounder. You pair that second rounder, that newfound second rounder with your 61 overall. You turn that into a 27 overall, 25 overall pick. You take Treylon Burks, you take Olave, and now you replace Deebo. Granted, you're losing something there, right? But your defense goes up even more in a positive direction than your offense is going to take a down tick. So it's like, even though I love Deebo, even though I'm supporting Deebo in most of this, and I disagree with the way everything's being twisted up, I hit the button right away. I said this in your show the other day. I hit the button if it's the number 4 and a second rounder, and maybe another second rounder, whatever the case may be. If it's Sauce Gardner and turns into Olave, or Sauce Gardner and turns into Burks, press the button. That's a better team overall, unfortunately.
So what do you think about this right here? Deebo wants to be traded, and I want to be a knight in Buckingham Palace. Deebo 22 cap hit is only $4.89 million. He can get tagged for $18.6 million. He has zero leverage. So essentially, would you hold Deebo Samuel hostage? And we saw the Patriots, and I talked about a little bit earlier, we saw the Patriots do that with N'Keal Harry, right? N'Keal Harry requested a trade. They said, no, we're not trading you. You're going to play and do that. Do you see the 49ers doing that with Deebo Samuel?
So the whole thing of players have leverage is a farce. They have leverage in that they can make waves and create unrest. And think about it this way. Deebo can't go talk to teams, right? He has to request a trade, right? Well, what can you do? You scrub your social media. It's like a little signal, like the bat signal to all the other teams. That's why they do it. It's like, hey, I'm unhappy. I'm scrubbing my social media. And that creates interest. Then you start hearing things. You start hearing what. So the whole thing of he has no leverage is true, because in the end, he cannot hold out. He cannot hold out. If he holds out, his career's over. You can't hold out. He will lose about $1 million every 5 weeks if he holds out. Those are mandatory fines. It's not like in the olden days where Zeke Elliott would hold out. He'd accrue millions of dollars in fines. And then when he walks back to sign his deal, they waive it. And they go, yeah, don't worry about those fines. We'll wipe those clean. Not anymore. They're mandatory. So Deebo Samuel would miss $40,000 per day, which equates to like $1 million every 5 weeks. He can't hold out. In the end, he has zero leverage from that perspective. But like I said, if he can create enough unrest and he can make things difficult, and then a team comes in and gives the Niners an offer that makes them say, well, we don't like getting pushed around, but that's a good offer. And honestly, there's this problem employee here. We're going to go ahead and solve that problem by taking an overpay. I don't care what Deebo thinks if he won this this game or not. We're hitting the button. Boom. So you do have power, but it depends on the interest. If the interest isn't high, then you're not going to get anything out of it. You can hold out till your heart's content, but you're coming back in the 11th hour. You're not missing any time. Deebo is not missing time. But Croc, I've said this from the beginning too. I think I said this in your show the other day too. You need to have a backup plan. Because if you're the Niners and you're going to drag your feet and you're not going to give him the deal he wants, and you're not going to trade him, or you drag your feet like the Niners do and they don't trade him in time, the draft goes by, now you can't trade him. You have to trade him on or before draft day. Let's say you drag your feet, you don't do a deal, you have to have a backup plan. Cut Jimmy G, you get $17.5 million, you give that to Deebo Samuel, and I think you told me that happened with Marshawn Lynch one year. You give that $17.5 million to Deebo Samuel that you get for cutting Jimmy G, and you pay him like around $22 million for 2022. You got to have a plan in place. There's no way you can ask this man to go back on the field and do what he did last year, or even remotely close to what he did last year, without paying him more. This is not in his job description to play a wide back, and the dude put his heart and soul on the line. And one more thing, I'm tired of hearing people say that Deebo doesn't want to play wide back anymore. I'm seeing all this trash talk on Deebo saying, well, if he's gonna not want to play this, or he doesn't want to play, if anybody has eyeballs, did you not watch what Deebo just did in 2021? He did whatever it took. If by now you don't think Deebo Samuel will do whatever it takes on the field for his team to win, you aren't watching football. Don't believe when someone says Deebo Samuel doesn't want to play wide back anymore. He just wants to get paid big bucks and do less things. What that probably is, I'm 99% certain, is people taking out of context that Deebo's essentially saying, or his camp is saying, look, we're not going to play wide back and get paid wide receiver money. He needs to get paid. And someone takes that, twists it up, and says Deebo Samuel now refuses to do multiple things, and he's so selfish. Like, I'm just sick and tired of the media twisting this up at every turn, Croc.
And now, I'm seeing a lot of, the comments in there. Oh, he sucks. Deebo doesn't, and it's like, nah, man, Deebo's legit. I have seen people kind of push back on what type of receiver he'd be if you can't hand the ball off to him. And it's like, well, he is a 1,400-yard receiver. So whether you hand the ball off to him or if you're throwing it to him all the time, I mean, I argue that he would have been a 1,700-yard receiver if not for the lack of targets the second half of the season. So great receiver. I don't think it matters, that if you wants to be utilized, handing the ball off or whatever. I think he's going to be good regardless, because just his big time ability, run after catch, and all those things. I think the thing to really kind of focus in on now is the timing of it. And you talked about the draft coming up. So that kind of presses the 49ers, or kind of puts them in a position to where it's like, all right, we have 1 week until the draft. And if we don't move him before or on the day, like you said, it's probably going to be a Niner, because you don't want to trade him and then be like, oh, well, we didn't really address the position and whatnot. So how do you see that whole thing playing out? And what do you think the 49ers might be able to get in return for him?
Yeah, the last time I came on your show, the guest before me was, I believe, a Jets fan or a Jets podcaster or something. And they were playing the Jets role in the trade, if you remember that.
Yeah.
And they were saying we're going to give like the 38 and the 30 whatever.
It said 35, 38, 69.
Yeah, and I came on and I'm like, the first thing I said was, you got to be out of your mind if you think the Niners are going to give you Deebo Samuel and let you keep the 4 and let you keep the 10. You can't have your cake, eat it too, and have the other person's cake as well. Like, there's no way in principle.
He's still here. He's actually in the chat right now.
Yeah,
he said y'all getting 35 and 38. Yeah,
and I wouldn't blame him for asking. Okay, like if he was representing the Jets, but there's just no way. I don't care if the trade chart shows this or that. You're not letting a team keep the 4, the 10, and Deebo Samuel. Honestly, if I'm trading Deebo, I'm saying you're giving me the 4. I don't care what you say. You're giving me the 4. You want Deebo Samuel? You're giving me the 4. You give me the 4. You give me a second rounder. I can turn that into Olave and Sauce Gardner, or Hutchinson and Olave, or Hutchinson and Treylon Burks. That I can work with. That I feel makes the team actually better, because if the defense is not top 5 to 6 or 7, it's top 1 to 5 with Sauce Gardner. That makes up for any dip you might have in losing Deebo. And it also dilutes your risk a lot, because if you think about it, let's be fair to the point that Deebo has only done it the 1 year. Let's be fair that Deebo running and being still kind of tagged as injury prone, it's a risk to run him out there as a wide back and then expect him to continue to stay healthy. So if you take him and divide him into Sauce Gardner and Treylon Burks, I mean, goodness gracious, Croc, you've divided your risk up, and now you have the ability to weather through a potential injury or something. So I absolutely love the idea of getting that kind of package in the end. It'd take 2 trades. You make the trade with the Jets, you get the second, you get the 4 overall, you draft Sauce Gardner. The Niners, like I said, you guys drag your feet on everything until draft day, and then you turn into like I guess it would be like Wolverines or werewolves or something, and you're active as mad for one night. The full moon comes out on draft day. You guys start trading it, and then all of a sudden it goes back to normal. You're dragging your feet again after until July or August. But on draft day, you were very active. So give me 2 trades. One with the Jets, Deebo for the 4 and a second rounder. Take the 61 you already have, couple it with that second rounder. Go get yourself a Traylon Burks and a Olave. I love it. I think you could easily do that.
What was the trade for Devontae Adams?
The trade for Devontae Adams. I'll pull up the exact trade here.
Let's see. I'm pulling it up as well.
Good point. Good.
Because we've been going off of Hill, but Adams was traded too. Again, hard. It's not, I guess, apples to apples. Both of these guys, a few years older than Deebo Samuel. Hill actually 2 years older.
22, 53, I believe, is what was acquired.
Mm.
Is that correct?
So let's say, factor in his age, factor in, to be his first contract, factor in, all pro season. Houston Texans, I believe they have picks 13. They have pick 3rd overall. They also have pick 13, and they have pick 37, I believe, in the second round. Would you take 13 and 37? And to me, it makes sense for them because you have Brandon Cooks, but they just re-signed Cooks. So you got Cooks. You have a young quarterback who they really like. And I feel like, with Pep Hamilton as the offensive coordinator, as somebody that probably Deebo Samuel kind of click with him, Lovie Smith, those type of guys. Would Deebo want to be in Houston? He's been in Houston before, training and stuff like that. Everybody wants to be in Houston, Texas.
Maybe they want to be in Houston, but do they want to be a Texan? I think Deebo, first of all, Deebo doesn't have a choice, he ultimately does, but if he wants to get traded, I don't know if he has a no trade clause.
Who, Deebo?
Does he? Yeah.
Nah, man, he's a
okay,
rookie.
Then he has no choice at all. If they want to send him, he doesn't get to pick where he goes. But if you were to ask me whether the Texans would actually trade for him, I don't think so, because they're in rebuild mode, but they're at the very beginning stages of it. I don't think that they would want to bring in a wide receiver that probably has a shorter shelf life than he would have if he wasn't used at wide back. And he's already considered a guy that needs to shake that injury prone label. He hasn't shaken it free yet. He's played 1 year. I don't think they're looking to ink him to a big deal when they don't have their quarterback situation completely on lock. Mills might be the real deal, maybe, but they're still, I think, fully in that we want to lose 1 more year, get high draft capital again, and then start a rebuild process. And I think they will rebuild. This isn't O'Brien anymore. This is actually a situation where I think in 2-3 years, they could actually have something. But I think to kind of like Seattle with Deebo, I don't think Seattle wants to keep DK. I don't think Seattle wants to keep DK because they have nothing in place to support it. And so if they, on his last year, I think DK is one of the most likely to get traded here in the next couple of days and week, because if you sign DK to a new deal, big, expensive deal, and you don't have any weapons to get him the football, you don't have a weapon to get him the football, you're wasting that first year. You're potentially wasting the second. And then before you know it, it's like you'd rather start over with a young rookie wide receiver that's more in line with the timeline of building the team out. So I think that Houston is not looking for Deebo. They could, but I think by the time they got things in motion, they could be looking at, another deal, him needing another contract. So right. It could take 2 or 3 years before
you just think it needs to be a team that's really like pressing to be good right now.
Yeah. And I can give you and we could go through the entire AFC and come up with the best places. I think the NFC is probably the, less likely to happen. I think.
Well, what about, and I'm looking at some of these teams with multiple picks and maybe a need at receiver. And I know this is an NFC team, but the Green Bay Packers, they have picks 22 and 28, I believe. Any chance they come off 22? And would the 49ers do it?
I would say there's definitely a shot of anything happening if the deal makes the Niners better. Because, you got to think to yourself, if the Niners want to trade Deebo, they clearly have concerns enough to be like, we don't feel like we're giving a team, I'm not saying I agree with this, but if they're willing to let him walk and not pay him, and they have been, because they could have signed him very cheaply at a very reasonable price months ago. They decided not to. So if they get enough back value wise, I'm sure they would contemplate it. But to give Deebo Samuel to Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, it's going to almost stand in the way of the Niners, making an NFC Championship appearance. Right. So I think probably they're going to try and avoid that at all costs and stay within the AFC. But you look at the AFC, you got New England. I don't think Deebo would be very effective in New England. New England's a place, I think, for wide receivers to probably go and die. But he'd be okay. He'd be good for the team. The team could win with him, but I don't think it's like the best place for Deebo. The Jets are obviously a front runner. The Dolphins are obviously a front runner. Those are 3 teams in the AFC East right there. I think the Cleveland Browns make a whole lot of sense with Deshaun Watson there. And the fact that, they're willing to spend, obviously. I don't know how much they have room to make that happen, but the cap is fictitious. Like you can move things around and figure it out. Baltimore Ravens, it wouldn't be shocking if the Ravens are like, let's get Lamar a weapon like this. And this is a weapon that could also be used on the ground. They love to run multiple running backs in the backfield anyway. So that could be interesting. The Colts are an option. Maybe the Jaguars are interested, but the Colts, and then I'd say the Chargers and Broncos would be options as well. Like those would be 2 very, very, very good teams to attack because they can win a Super Bowl right now. Like the Chargers and Broncos, if one of those teams acquired Deebo Samuel, they would be probably one of the top 4 front runners to win the Super Bowl. They already are, but you know what I mean? Like if the Denver Broncos got Deebo, that'd be crazy. That'd be crazy.
Someone asked about the Kansas City Chiefs, I believe, right? Did it say who does Chiefs have?
Yeah.
They signed. Yeah, who does the Chiefs have? They've already had Terry McLaurin. We know about Travis Kelce. They also signed Juju Smith-Schuster, and they paid a little money to Marquez Valdes-Scantling. So I don't know. That's one of the teams where a lot of people are like, "Oh, receiver," because they lost Tyreek Hill, and I'm like, I don't know.
Yeah, in the Packers and the Chiefs, a lot of people say they're not. They let Adams go. They let Hill go. Why would they sign a big name wide receiver? Why would they trade for DK and pay DK? And people need to remember that Tyreek Hill was about to ink a monster deal. They were gonna pay Tyreek Hill. Then Devontae Adams got traded, got his new deal. He changed the fair market value, and so Tyreek Hill, about to sign his massive deal, backed up and said, "Never mind, I want that." And the Chiefs said, "We're going to trade you because we can't afford that."
And with the Devontae Adams, they actually offered him, and he's like, "Nah, I want to go play in Las Vegas
So
with my buddy."
Yeah, both teams are willing to spend on a wide receiver. So DK to Green Bay is a very, very likely scenario to me. McLaurin to Green Bay is a very likely scenario. Deebo would be a dream come true for them. It's possible. But I don't know if the Niners will want to do that. But the Packers, they offered Adams more money than Vegas offered him because they had to account for the different taxes and everything, So they actually had to offer him more money to make it equal. And Adams said, "No, I want to go play with my boy in Las Vegas." So the Packers are ready to spend money on a wide receiver. And there's talk about them making a draft day splash before or on draft day. I don't think Sammy Watkins was that splash, so he might not even make the team. But DK Metcalf or McLaurin, I believe one of those guys, very strong chance. McLaurin, DK, maybe Deebo will be a Green Bay Packer on or before draft day. Similar to my Deebo requesting a trade, I feel very confident that DK will be on the move or McLaurin.
All right, here we go. So we got a little bit of news here from Josina Anderson. She said, when requesting a trade like Deebo Samuel has, though not guaranteeing a move, you always garner feedback from the market. Regarding the Chiefs, a league source told me while Samuel is regarded as highly talented, the team is not actively pursuing him currently, focused on the draft. So again, the draft is coming up. Doesn't mean that they're not into Deebo Samuel, but right now it's like, okay, we see the Deebo Samuel situation. We're focused on the draft. We'll see what we have there and what our options could possibly be there. And maybe we'll circle back around if we're not liking what we see. So there's the possibility of that. Also, a report here. Meanwhile, my understanding is there's feeling currently my understanding is there's feeling currently within the Jets organization that wide receiver Deebo Samuel won't be moved at all unless San Francisco gets King's ransom, per league source.
Yeah. I mean, here's the thing, Croc. Don't you think that the Niners are the kind of team that's going to take their sweet time and maybe not even pull something off? I mean, out of all the teams in the NFL, they're the most likely to go at their own pace and not let anybody influence them. You know, that's why they still have Jimmy G on the roster. You know, like the Jimmy G botching is the same thing as the Deebo Samuel botching. And if Jimmy G's any indication that the Niners may not wrap this up the way we would to try and solve it, that tells me that there's a chance, a good chance, not for sure. It could go either way. The right offer comes along, you're going to hit the button. But the Niners are capable of ignoring this, you know, because they ignored Jimmy G. They ignored that entire. We're still sitting watching Jimmy G sit on this roster and taking up 17.5 million could come back right now. You could give that to Deebo Samuel as a backup plan. I'm not saying Deebo wants that. He wants longevity. But if you're telling Deebo, we can only give you 55 million guaranteed, sorry. And Deebo says, I'm not taking that. You say, Deebo, here's 17.5 million to play this year on top of your 4. And that makes him come back and play. You know, I'm not saying he won't come back and play anyway, but he's not going to want to come back and play wide back. He's going to be disgruntled. He's not going to give you his all. And he's going to hope that he either gets franchise tagged and traded next offseason, which is probably what would happen if the Niners even tag him. And then, you know, like if you think about it from that perspective, what does he want? Probably, Croc. What would he accept?
The issue, I don't know what the problem is. They're saying right now that the money's not the root of these problems. It's deeper than that. So, I mean, you know, and my co-host Brian Peacock, we touched on this on Locked On 49ers. He thinks like, I think it started with the money and whatever happened, it was so disrespectful that he just got turned off about it. And worked out. But everybody can say it's negotiation tactics and all that, but it just seems all odd to me. And I can't wrap my head around it. You go and the first thing you do is scrub your entire Instagram account. Then someone posts something about 25 million or whatever, like we don't want it. And then your brother comes out and says, my brother's about to request a trade. And then you actually request a trade. And then the 49ers are like, we don't plan on trading you. I mean, this is an ugly situation. Okay, here's the thing. With the 49ers coming out, and well, they're not coming out, but all the reports are he ain't getting out. Is that the 49ers just basically saying, well, you know, hey, man, we will trade him, but you just got to be the right offer. Let's make it seem like we don't want him. So we'll see if we can get a little bit more. Do you think that can be a scenario there?
I mean, it's all in play, man. All of it. I mean, we don't know. Nobody knows anything for sure, especially with Shanahan's not going to relay that. But for sure, you say, look, we have no interest in trading Deebo Samuel. Let's see if that invokes, something amazing. If so, we'll revisit this. But yeah, I really believe that is the general stance. Like, we're going to see if this creates some drama and a bidding war, and then maybe we change our mind. But we are so hard-headed as a duo, John and Kyle. So hard-headed, they literally will not trade him. Like, you know, whereas most teams were like the Packers, okay, Adams is disgruntled, Hill is disgruntled. Again, back to the question earlier, do players actually have leverage? And the answer is not when they're under contract, but somehow these players are using social media and the unrest to facilitate their own trades. And some teams are vulnerable to that. Some teams aren't. The Niners are not a team that will be vulnerable when they literally have all the cards. Deebo has only unrest and unhappy leverage. And the Niners are the type of team, everybody watching, tell me if I'm wrong. The Niners are the type of organization, John and Kyle specifically, that don't care about that. They'll literally let this fester. And like the Jimmy G situation, they'll later on go, wow, well, we didn't see that really turning out that way. But they're not going to be pressured into trading Deebo unless, like you said, it's a king's ransom. It's a phenomenal offer. And that for sure could be the case. But back to what you just said about that it's weird. It is weird. But I don't blame Deebo. 100% of this I put on the Niners. You had an obligation, in my opinion, after you used Deebo Samuel in a way that didn't fit his job description at all. It was literally 2 different roles that you asked this man to play. You had a responsibility at the beginning of this when you knew, just like you knew Jimmy G's shoulder was injured and then, we found out he needed surgery and that threw us off course. You knew he was hurt. He was playing on a shoulder that probably most definitely required surgery when the injury happened. And his thumb needed surgery too. We haven't heard a word about that. That'll probably pop up. Watch. But you knew that this was going to happen. You can't say you didn't. I'm talking to the Niners.
Right.
As an organization. You know that Deebo Samuel is going to be unhappy after he did what he did in 2021. And you literally go through this offseason letting it fester and fester and fester. I blame everything on the approach. I don't care if it's the Niner way. People come to me, Croc, and say, Smitty, you don't understand. This is how they do it. I don't care.
Right.
It doesn't make it right. Just because this is the way we do something doesn't mean that it's the right way, especially when you step outside the box and you do something that you normally don't do, like ask your wide receiver to play running back and wide receiver. That normally doesn't happen. So why can't you step outside the box, ink Deebo up? You know that contracts are going up. You know that all these wide receivers are going to get extensions. Like there's the plethora of 1-year wide receiver situations here that were going to hike the price up. It may be Christian Kirk we couldn't see coming. He ruined everything for everybody, right? Well, but once Christian Kirk happened, we had more receivers getting money. And guess what, Croc? Guess what? If you weren't willing to pay Deebo 2 months ago, I can tell you right now that if you're willing to right now, you're going to do it. And you're going to offer him something. Why? Because Cooper Kupp's about to get paid. A.J. Brown or DK Metcalf or McLaurin are about to get paid. And once Cooper Kupp signs his deal, which is going to be the top wide receiver paid in the league, I don't care what Cooper Kupp says. It's not about the money. Aaron Rodgers said the same thing. It's not about the money. It's about
still
the
got done there, what, $50 million
Aaron
a
Rodgers
year.
is the highest paid quarterback per year right now. So let's not pretend Cooper Kupp's not going to be. He's getting paid 13 or 14 million a year. They will right size his contract, which is easier than giving him a new deal, right? Because he's already got that guaranteed like 13, 14 million a year. So they're just going to up it to about 28, 30, whatever. Once that happens, what does anybody think? That Deebo's value is going to go down? It's only going to go up more. If the Niners are willing to pay him right now, they would do it because they know it's going to go up even further. It's just, it feels like the writing's on the wall to me, and it's frustrating to see all these media outlets paint Deebo as the bad guy. Maybe, like you said, scrubbing the social media, Croc, it's not for everybody. And I'm not saying that's necessarily the best.
And we know y'all have dealt with that with your Arizona Cardinals, right?
Yeah. But guess what? The difference between Kyler and Deebo is Kyler didn't step up during the year. Kyler didn't go back onto the field and take his final snap with his teammates because he was blaming everybody. Kyler wasn't a leader. Deebo did every single thing you asked him to do. And scrubbing his social media, I'll give him a pass. Plus, like I said, without requesting a trade, this is the way to get notice and to get teams to talk about the fair market value for you. So, like Raj said on RSF 49ers on our Quad Box show, that what are we talking about? Deebo all the time. So is scrubbing social media a good thing for Deebo? In a sense, I mean, it's caused a lot of negativity too, but it's getting it talked about. It's getting his contract out there. So this is not on Deebo. Maybe right now he might be taking it into a direction where he's like, the Niners are like, hey, come. Stop airing the dirty laundry. Come in. Let's talk. And Deebo's like, I'm tired of dancing around the table because if I walk in, guess what? Neither one of you, John or Kyle, will have a contract on the table. He knows that. He walks to the table. There will be no offer sitting on the table. It'll be John and Kyle saying, yeah, we left the offer back at the office. We would like you to just relax. We'll take care of you in July. That's why Deebo's not going back to the table. And these media outlets everywhere and reports are acting like Deebo Samuel's the diva that refuses to sign with the Niners. Why would he want to stay at this point, Croc? The fan base is turning on him. Why would he want to stay?
Yeah, I mean, I'd be disgruntled too, man. This whole thing, I'm curious to see how it plays out, man. Smitty, I appreciate you coming on. Here we go. Last question for you. The first round of the draft is next Thursday. By the end of the night, is Deebo Samuel still a 49er?
I said 50-50 last night on our Quad Box show when Raj asked me this question. I would say I'm leaning toward 50-50 still because I feel like the Niners are capable of ignoring the fact that this is going to get really ugly. But I think there's still a 50% chance he gets traded, only because I think he's very sought after, and the right offer could come along and make the Niners change directions no matter what their stance is right now. Like, even if they say we're not trading him, if somebody says, like the Jets said, we'll give you the 4 and 10, I'm not saying they'll give that, but if they said we'll give you the 4 and the 10 overall, like, the Niners are going to go hit the button.
Now, what would make them drag their feet, right? Like, would it be the Jets offer for Tyreek Hill? Would the 49ers be like, nope, not doing that? Which was pick 35, 38, 69.
Yeah, I don't think that they would take that. I mean, the trade chart might make them accept something that I wouldn't accept, I suppose, but I think that the Niners have like a way off course, off base undervaluation of Deebo, like, to give him money, but I believe they're going to have, I think their evaluation to trade him is going to be so much higher. Like, the discrepancy as to what they're willing to pay him. Like, how much is Deebo worth to you? Well, obviously not a lot, because they're not signing him. And they could have signed him for dirt cheap. But how much is he worth trading? Oh, yeah, we're not going to trade him for unless you're giving us the moon.
He's worth too much.
It's like, what are you doing? Like, the discrepancy between the two is crazy. But 50-50, I'd say, chance of him getting traded. And in that other 50% where he stays, there's a lot of drama approaching, because they have to ink him to a deal. They have to repair the relationship too. And this guy's probably not motivated right now to do that, because he's probably very disappointed in the fan base too. And while it's a small amount of people, they're just very loud. It's still going to be aggravating for a player. I mean, you were a player, Croc. I mean, how did one person in the stands, like, yelling at you affect you? Imagine everyone all over social media, just like the threats he's getting, like, it's ridiculous. Yeah. Mostert got it too. So it's not just like a one-off. Like, this fan base is very, very good. And it's one of the most passionate. And honestly, the Niner fan base is one of the best in the NFL, but it comes at a cost. That overpassionate personality type, they can get upset and extreme. And Mostert was dealt an awful hand when he got hurt. He wasn't even trying to, like, hold out or negotiate something. He got hurt and he got threats, and people were ridiculous. I just think it's inexcusable. And I don't blame Deebo for being at a point, like, and I don't think Schefter's reporting was correct. I still think it was trash how he talked about it last night. All this speculation on Deebo, even if he's correct in that Deebo doesn't want to come to the table any longer, it's because there's no offer sitting there, and Schefter's acting like the Niners have a pen in their hand, and they don't.
Here we go. My guy Miguel says, Adams and Hill are proven wide receivers. Back-to-back Pro Bowls. Those guys deserve to get paid. Deebo had one good year out of 3. Trade Deebo. I think Deebo had an excellent rookie year. I mean, I know the numbers don't reflect, like, I feel like how good he was. Almost like kind of Nick Bosa, right? Like, I think Nick Bosa had a terrific rookie year in the sense of pressures, right? But you look at his sack numbers, it was like 9 or something like that, 8.5, 9 sacks. Where it's like, yeah, that's solid. But, like, I don't think the sack numbers reflect how good he was. I think that's the same with Deebo Samuel. Like, that second half of the season, man, like, once he kind of really picked up the offense, he was money. Then you get into the playoffs, and, I mean, I feel like 49ers would have won the Super Bowl. He would have been Super Bowl MVP, right? So, like, yeah, I feel like people talk about his rookie year because, well, he was just shy of 1,000 total yards between rushing and receiving. It's like, he only did it for 1 year. But I don't know. His rookie year was good. And then his year 2, he was on pace for 1,200 yards and 105 receptions. You know, if you kind of average his numbers out over that whole season, obviously we know what he did last year. So I think he's always been good. It's just, you know,
Yeah.
he's good.
I think you don't trip and fall into what he did last year. Like if you're using like pure and analysis and you're looking at, you're not just looking at like the numbers, you're looking at watching film, you've experienced those games by watching them, you like saw it with your own eyes. You don't trip and fall into that production. What Deebo did was special, and I think it takes one of those minds that can't see any of that. They're very, very statistical, to ignore it, to not see that I don't care what I don't care about the injury risk as much as that this guy did something that very few players could have done. And this goes back to the people say Ayuk is a better receiver, pure wide receiver, and Deebo's a better weapon. I disagree with that. I'm not saying Ayuk can't get there, and I'm not saying that if Deebo leaves, Ayuk won't ball out. Like I'll probably get people go, told you Ayuk was going to be like. I'm not saying Ayuk. I'm saying Ayuk's going to be great. I loved Ayuk. I loved Ayuk coming in. I thought he would be a great fit for the Niners. They drafted him. We talked about that well before the draft, that Ayuk would be a phenomenal. I remember talking to Raj about it because I'm in Arizona. He's from ASU. And we were talking about how his arms were like go gadget arms, he can go grab anything. So I love Ayuk. I'm not ripping on Ayuk at all. But it's unfair to literally say, hey, Deebo, we're going to take away a lot of your receiving duties and give you the running back role, and him hit it out of the park. Like, do that better than anybody could have possibly done it, and then judge him for it, and then act like he isn't as good of a wide receiver because he hasn't proven it. Such an unfair thing that people do when they say Deebo is not as good of a route runner or as good of a wide receiver as Ayuk. Like this guy, what he did in hitting it out of the park. And I don't want to compare Jordan to Deebo, but just to give you like a weird example, like when Jordan stopped driving into the hoop, he had to learn how to do something else. And so he developed a shot that he never really had before. And his second half of his career was different than the first half of his career, but he was just as good. Like Jordan was literally two different players, and he was the best in both of those roles. And again, I'm not comparing Jordan to Deebo or anything like that, but in that, like, you take somebody out of a role, you ask him to do something else. Like, was Jordan just as good at driving and probably dunking? Yeah, I mean, he probably couldn't do it as much anymore because he was getting older, but he didn't need to do that because he was so good at shooting the ball. So it's like, Deebo was running back, dominated it, and then people are acting like he can't do that other part. And it's just like, I just think it's unfair. But I think Deebo's value is bigger in San Francisco than it is anywhere else. So if he goes somewhere else, he won't be as productive because he fits this role perfectly. And he'd have to go somewhere like Green Bay or maybe the Chargers, maybe Denver. Those would be the only three places where he'd do as good.
Real quick, I got my guy right here. Jets Gang, he said, did Bosa get a sack when he played the Jets? No, but Bosa only played like one quarter, and he tore his ACL in that Jets game. So, yeah, he played one quarter, maybe a quarter and a half, maybe the beginning of the second quarter, but Bosa was out of that game pretty quick with that torn ACL. My guy Gammon in here, he says, Smitty and Parag we trust, 49er all the way.
Hey, Croc, what are the odds that Deebo's a Niner once the draft concludes? I say 50-50. What do you say?
If they got a first for DeForest Buckner and were willing to trade him, I think it would cost something like that for Deebo. And I do think that a team would pony up a first.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the organization, the way they work, I don't think they want to hold someone against their will. Like even Deebo, even Jimmy said, bye everybody. But then it's like, damn, you messed your shoulder up, so we can't trade you right now. But don't worry, when that shoulder gets back, we're going to figure out how to move on from you. I think with Deebo, whatever the situation is, why he's so irritated, I don't know. but I do know one thing: they don't take me as someone that's going to hold him against his will. So if they can get something decent for him, and obviously they're looking for a lot, they'll trade him. So I'd give it a better chance that he's gone than being with the team. And that's different than what I said earlier today. This morning, I said, 75% chance he's with the 49ers, 50% chance he's gone. He's traded. And then this news comes out, and I'm more like 60-40 in favor of him being gone.
I could get the 60-40 really quick. And I guess the one thing I'd say is that, if Deebo, if the fan, like, here's the problem. If you're a fan right now and you've mistreated Deebo, you're probably the reason he's going. Like, if Deebo didn't face the negativity from the fan base, I'm pretty sure that he'd have some loyalties that would pull him back. And he'd be like, man, we're close. I love my teammates. We've done very good. But you got to think from Deebo's perspective that if he feels very confident that a fresh start would give him, help wipe away some of those feelings that he has right now about his own fan base, loving him. If he can get paid and start fresh, I think that's where his mind's at. So the fan base turning on him was probably the part that's going to make it hard for Deebo to remotivate himself to head back to the table.
All right, man. All right. It's just a situation, man. Smitty, I appreciate you joining me. I know, are you going to be live today on your YouTube and all that?
Anytime breaking news hits, I go live. So, but yeah, at 7 p.m. Eastern, I'm live every day too, on top of that. So I got to get you on the show sometime real soon to talk. So any 7 p.m. Eastern time works for you, Monday through Friday, let me know.
All right. Sounds good, man. I'll see you.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on to Chop It Up. Appreciate you.
All right, bet. As a sub, shout out to my guy Smitty. He's actually an Arizona Cardinal fan, but clearly knowledgeable about everything that's going on in the NFL. Not just 49ers, not just the Arizona Cardinals. Big fantasy guy. So, he pays attention to everything going on. And obviously right now we're paying attention to what's going on with Deebo. So the Deebo Samuel watch is officially begun. Deebo watch is in effect. Will he get traded? We'll see. Talk to y'all tomorrow morning. Peace.
Intercepted. It is picked off by Aaron Crocker. Over midfield, he'll run it all the way into the end zone. Touchdown.
Crop Talk TV podcast. Peace.